Hey, welcome back. Okay, so we were on deserts. Here we are. A desert. Here's the deal. It doesn't have to be hot. So for the most part, yes, most deserts are really, really, really warm. But the most important part of being classified as a desert is to be really, really dry with very little biodiversity and little plant life. Oh boy, why does it always do that? Okay, so here are some of the deserts of the world and where you can find them. So, there are deserts everywhere. It just has to be really, really dry. So that's why it's not, yes, it can also be hot, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So I say that because in Asia, up in here, um, those are called cold deserts, right? Or even ice deserts. And so it can get really, really hot, but it can also swing to be incredibly cold and have ice chips and things like that. Technically speaking, the tundra could be considered a desert because it is so dry. So it's just deserts are kind of hard to pin down. All right, now let's get into some stereotypical desert type things. Um, in stereotypical deserts, you're thinking really, really hot and it's really, really dry, and all of that's true. Does that mean it never rains? No, it doesn't mean it never rains. In some of these places, it'll rain really heavy for like 1 day a year or 2 days a year. Or there's, a little rainfall a couple days a year, but overall it's really, really dry. Now, because of that, the soil is not super great at soaking up torrential downpours on the one occasion that it would do that. So then it'll cause flash flooding and all kinds of other issues that occur. But there's some really neat footage. I think Planet Earth has some awesome footage of what these places can transform into when the flash flood has happened and stopped. So anyway, okay, so if you look at Australia, most of Australia is a desert. That's something a lot of people may not know, is that most of Australia is considered a desert. So really just those coastal regions of Australia are not. And some of those are, well, they actually vary quite a bit from place to place, depending on just the overall region of where you at. Are you actually near the coast in Australia or are you not? Probably the desert you're the most familiar with would be the Sahara in northern Africa. It is huge. It is absolutely ginormous. The desert in the United States called Death Valley, I believe, is the hottest desert in the world. And there are people that run ultra marathons, which mean far over the standard mileage. They run like 50 miles or something crazy. And they will do this in the desert. So I think there's something called a Grand Slam, and it's where you run an ultra on 4 different continents, but particularly 4 different deserts. It's anyway, I wouldn't do it, but to each their own. Okay, so they have they have very, very limited biodiversity. They have the least amount of rainfall, them and the tundra. Um, the temperature swings here are crazy, so it can be really, really hot and then really, really cold at night. It's very dry, so it's a different kind of heat than in places that are really, really humid. Um, the soil is rich in minerals because there's not a lot of things soaking it out. But it doesn't have a lot of organic matter because there are not a lot of plants to shed any sort of plant matter that would go through the carbon cycle, go through the nitrogen cycle, and re-enrich that soil. There's just nothing there. All right. A lot of the animals in the desert are nocturnal. Let's see if I can move my face. And that's simply because it's the easiest time to survive in the desert is at night as far as temperatures are concerned. If you can hit that sweet spot where it's not frigid yet and it's not unbelievably sweltering hot, then it's best to be nocturnal in a desert. A lot of the animals do have to eat seeds in order to get any sort of water supply. If you're somewhere with cacti, some of the birds will peck a hole into the side of a cactus because the cactus, some of the cacti, will actually fill the inside of themselves with water. And so the birds can go through the hole and drink like it's a little pool down there, and they can take a bath and whatever, and then come out. So you have to get creative in the desert of where to find your water. Yes, so plants do store it in whatever little leaves that they may have. For the most part, these aren't the same types of leaves that you're thinking of. These would be the difference between like stems and thorns. So anyway, very, very different. And yes, they have a long root system because they have to go long distances to try to find water. Like sometimes that bedrock is way, way down there. All right, temperate grasslands. So before we talked about savanna grasslands, now these are temperate grasslands. These are places in the United States like Oklahoma that we also call prairies. And so really hot summers, really cold winters, and moderate amounts of rainfall. Really lush soil, really, really fertile, lush soil. And so it's also called the breadbasket of the United States because that is where we grow the most wheat and corn and honestly just food overall. There are frequent fires in every type of grassland simply because if you have dry grass and there is lightning of any kind, whoosh. And so if you notice, grass is actually really invasive, which is something that a lot of people don't think about. And so it's really invasive. And so in these places, the grass will actually starve out any trees that are nearby. That's not to say that there can't ever be trees, but for the most part, trees will not flourish here because the grass suck up any of those nutrients that a little sapling would need to try to mature. And so that grass is just almost parasitic in these places. It just takes over. Let's see here. Okay. Yes, the animal adaptations, these are going to be where there are lots of animals that have multi-chambered stomachs or have an ability to process that grass in another way. You would not survive here by eating grass alone because you are not made to eat grass. Your stomach cannot break down cellulose, which is the main sugar, and so you need cellulase to do that, and you don't have it. All right. So yes, bison do very well here. Cows do very well here. Let's see what else. Horses, deer, all of that, they do very well in the grasslands. Yes, their coloring needs to be a variety of brown or beige because everything there is brown or beige. If you think about the grass and the trees, there's nothing that's like a tropical rainforest where it's all, super brightly colored, not the grasslands. It's all muted. Okay. Plants. Yes, there are deep roots to absorb moisture because there's so much grass that you're competing with if you're grass. And then, the roots. Yes, yes, yes. So the roots are the part that can withstand the fire. So in the savanna, the bark of the trees was fireproof. In this case, it's the roots of the grass that's fireproof so that when a fire rolls through, you can resprout and regrow, and grass is hardy. Grass is really hardy. Okay, so here is a cool little, let me see if I can move this. It's a cool little graphic. So if you look at the x-axis, it's the average precipitation, so that could be snow or rain, doesn't matter, per year. And then if you look at the y-axis, it's giving you the average temperature in Celsius. So remember, in Celsius, you pretty much need to multiply by 9/5 and then add 32 degrees in order to get the Fahrenheit equivalent. Okay, so let's see here. So they have, the interesting thing with the temperature is that they have it reversed. So that's -15, and way down here at the bottom is +15, or 25. What is that? No, there's 15. There's 15. Okay, so +15, then 20, then 25, and 30. Sorry. And then in millimeters, they have it going this way. So it's interesting that they flipped that. I'm not really sure why they did that at all, but whatever. Okay, so if we're talking dry and really hot, which would be here, then you have savannas and temperate grasslands. This all makes sense, right? And if you go even drier than that, you've got deserts, and deserts last a long way because they can be really cold or really hot. If you go really dry but really cold, you're in the tundra, and it has some variation depending on what area you're in. Let's go the opposite of that. Woof, all the way over here, we're in really, really warm and really, really moist, and that would be the tropical rainforest. And then you're sort of in this sweet spot here where it has, medium precipitation and medium heat, and you get a temperate forest, which is where we live. So you're right here in the middle. Yeah, so it's just how you read that. Okay. Identify which biome goes under which number. Well, we sort of already did that, but on this case, they changed the axes and what goes where. So in this case, the average temperature is on the X and the average precipitation is on the Y. And they still, once again, did the whole weird flipperoo where it was hot near the 0, 0 and cold farther out. So anyway, you can do that for practice if you want. These are the answers to that. Okay, here we go. So which biome has the most biodiversity? That would be the tropical rainforest. Which biome has the least biodiversity? That would be deserts and the tundra. Which biomes get the least amount of rainfall? That would be the desert and the tundra. And which biome gets the most rainfall? That would be any rainforest. It could be tropical or temperate. So we'll say tropical rainforest. All right, that should be everything. Hopefully that helps. And if you need anything, email me as always.